everybody, and welcome to SLC Puck. It's a pleasure to have you with us here, partner. I'm your host, Austin Facer, and I've long advocated for the name which has re-entered the conversation as the permanent identity of the Utah Hockey Club, the Outlaws. I've been a day one fan of calling the team the Utah Outlaws. You guys know this. You've been a part of the show since the inception. Episode 79 we're on, by the way. I think I've been touting Outlaws as my preferred choice since about episode 7. So imagine my jubilation to see that Outlaws has re-entered the conversation. That was the big news this week, but lots of other stuff has happened in the wide, wonderful world of Utah hockey as well. So thanks for joining us here on SLC Puck. We'll talk all about it here in just a second, but first, let me just do some quick stick taps here, okay? I gotta give some props to the fellas over at the Puck Drop Podcast, Cole and Destin. You guys might know them. You might have seen my appearance on their show a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. Here's what's annoying about those guys, though. They also film their show in Centerville, which drives me crazy because I was so certain that I had the Centerville podcast, king of podcasting in Centerville title locked down. Those guys have stolen it from me, and they did an incredible job this week. They got Theo Fleury, NHL legend Theo Fleury, back in town. Did a meet and greet at the Grizzlies game. He was skating around up at the Weber Ice Sheet as well, so that was all coordinated by Destin and Cole, so that was a tremendous effort there. And let me just talk about other Utah hockey podcasts as well. The one is called the Utah Hockey Podcast. You probably know Mike Wolf. He does NHL Utah on Instagram. I will be on their show this week as well, so that should be a lot of fun. And sorry, just one more housekeeping item. I am very excited to announce that we have our first ever sponsor here on SLC Puck. So you'll hear a little ad for them here in just a second. But we'll get rolling into the show first before we get to that. But I'm really excited about this partnership. It's a lot of fun. I think it's something that really benefits you guys as listeners. That was a real priority for me when I was looking for sponsors. I wanted to create an arrangement that would help me build the show and also be something that would be of use to you guys as listeners as well. So big thanks to our sponsor for that. You'll hear that ad in just a second. But let's get into this here. The news of the week. I'm recording this right now. The date is Groundhog Day. Did anybody get any word on Punxsutawney Phil? Did he see his shadow? He did see a shadow, so we get more winter. Is that what that means? We need that. I'll say that. I was up at Snow Basin. There was a little bit of snow there, but so I got some skiing in. I want more skiing though, so I think we need a long, bountiful winter. So kudos to Punxsutawney Phil for doing his job today. Hey guys, I want to interrupt today's episode for just a second to let you know about this incredible partnership we have here at SLC Puck. It's so good, it might even get you out of the penalty box with your significant other, if you know what I mean. I've partnered with the good folks at Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelers, same ownership, to give you like this unbelievable deal. This is what we're going to do. We're going to give away one $250 gift card for each episode in February. That's 8 $250 gift cards in total. It's nuts. It's crazy. Here's what's even crazier about it, how easy it is to get in the drawing. All you have to do is scan this QR code right here. It's going to pull up a text message thing. You just got to send that. You're in the drawing. Bada bing, bada boom. You're in. It gets better, though. If you head into Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers at Trolley Square or Jonathan's Jewelry in Cottonwood Heights and just mention SLC Puck, they'll knock $100 off any purchase. Nuts. Absolutely bonkers. Super happy to have this deal going on with our good friends at Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelers. It's easy. So what are you waiting for? Scan the QR code. Hit send is what I meant to say. Hit send on that text and get some ice from Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry today. Details, rules, regulations, all that good stuff at slcpuck.com. Go check it out. And big thanks to Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelers for their support of SLC Puck. Thank you. Back to the show. Who did not do their job today. Sadly, the Utah Hockey Club lost a 2-1 decision to the St. Louis Blues. So I'm recording that right after the game ended. It's about 8:12 p.m. right now. The game ended probably about 20 minutes ago. So we'll recap that for you in a second. Utah's on a little bit of a slide right now, which could affect some future decisions that have to be made. And I'll tell you like what I think is happening with the Utah Hockey Club as well. But let's not bury the lead here. What do you say, folks? I'm wearing a cowboy hat, and it's for good reason. It's because I am elated to learn, as I think a lot of people were, that the name Outlaws has re-entered the conversation as a potential possible permanent identity for the Utah Hockey Club. This was a weekend swap, so to speak. I think this happened on Friday, I believe, ahead of the Blue Jackets game. Yeah, because ahead of the Pittsburgh game, which we went to, they were like, we're doing another round of in-arena voting. Here are your three options. Mammoth, Hockey Club, and something we're going to call Wasatch. And that was kind of just an attempt to utilize the not Yeti, but the mythical snow creature logo that they've been working on at SEG, Smith Entertainment Group, for quite a while. So I think Wasatch was an attempt to kind of shoehorn that in a bit. I think the consensus was that was going to be a very unpopular choice. So credit to Smith Entertainment for realizing that. What they said was they dug into the data that was captured during the Pittsburgh game, fans in arena voting. I talked about, I was at Delta Center. I submitted my vote. At the time, I voted for the woolly mammoth, the Utah Mammoth, because it seemed like the best option of the three. Had Outlaws been on the ballot at that time, I would have voted for Outlaws, which has been my day one choice. But I'll say this: I don't entirely dislike the idea of calling the team the Utah Mammoth, but Outlaws has long been my favorite, and I'll go over that again in detail. But yeah, that was the big news this week. Wasatch, we hardly knew ye. You came and gone. As quickly as you came was as quickly as you left. I'm sure there's an expression that's better, articulated than that. But it was kind of like that meme that you see sometimes, like from The Simpsons, where Grandpa Simpson comes in the door, drops his hat, does a lap, picks the hat up again, and then walks out the door. That was how I saw the Utah Wasatch. Its lifespan as a potential name for the NHL team, the Utah Hockey Club. But I was super excited to see Outlaws back in the mix. And what I wasn't able to go to the game on Friday against the Blue Jackets, so I did not get to see what the logo looks like, because they not only did they show off the name, but they showed off like what the logo would possibly look like. That's why I was able to talk about what would have been the Yeti logo quite a bit. But from what I've heard from people, this one that we've seen quite a few times on Twitter, and I wish I knew the designer who did this originally, so I can give him the credit for that. But I've heard that this is a somewhat close approximation to what was shown as the visual interpretation of Outlaws. And I think that what I had been seeing on social media was a lot of people felt like it could use a lot more work. And I'll be honest, if that's what it is, then yes, I would agree. It could use some more work as well. And this is kind of just the way it's shaping up, though. I think people are seeing, and I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, look at this. I got this hotline right here, the SLC Puck hotline. That's where you guys can call in and give your take. That number is 919-666-PUCK Puck 7825. Give your take on the naming issue. I'd love to address that in a future episode. But it seems to me the way people are viewing this in sort of tiers and the way they're categorizing this in their minds, and I don't disagree with this at all. I think people are feeling that Outlaws might be the best name, but the logo that's been presented could be the worst of the group of the three. Whereas Mammoth kind of finds itself in second place as far as like maybe it's the second best name or second worst, half glass full, half glass empty kind of thing. And perhaps the second best logo or second worst logo, right? So it's kind of right there in the middle, which could be the sweet spot that puts it over the top. Whereas The third option, Utah Hockey Club, weakest name, but probably has the strongest logo because they theoretically would be utilizing the mythical snow creature logo. But again, I've been saying this since like May or June, or it's been so long. We've had so much happen in the last few months, by the way. It's truly stunning to try to recapture all of it. I'm pretty sure there was an election somewhere in the mix too, if I'm remembering right. But anyway, we're not going to get into election stuff here on this show, folks. Although we are talking about voting, right? So interesting paradox there. But I said from day one that I thought Outlaws was the best choice. And it's the reason why I feel this way. And again, I would love to get your guys' input and take on this. It seems to me like Outlaws really does kind of have, I guess, like the most potential for something that would be like a really phenomenal in-game experience. I talked about this so much in the early days of the show, how going to a Golden Knights game last December, not this last December, but the December before that, was an incredible experience. It's kind of like medieval times on ice, really. It's a show. They have a Golden Knight who battles the other characters from around the National Hockey League. I really thought that they could pull something similar to that most easily with the Outlaws moniker. And I could see like a lot of fun things being done in the arena. I think, in the event of a shootout, like that could be a lot of fun. There could be some crazy stuff they could put up on the Jumbotron at Delta Center. I think some of the merchandising could be cool. Again, the logo has to be better, I think, than if it's similar to what I just showed. It has to be similar, or it has to be better than that, and maybe pulled off in like a different, more creative way. Maybe like with horsey elements, or maybe with something that's I don't know what it is. Spurs, maybe. I don't know. But I really like the name Outlaws because I thought it presented a certain kind of toughness as well. And the other thing I really appreciated was the fact that it was kind of an ode to Utah's history in the Wild Wild West, Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, John Wayne movies. Like, Utah was kind of the crossroads for the Wild West in a lot of ways. But someone made this really interesting argument to me that I found pretty funny, was they're like, a lot of people outside of Utah don't consider Utahns to be very much of, outlaws here. There's a perception. I don't want to blow anybody's minds here. Okay. I know I have a mostly Utah audience here, and I'm sure the people who live outside of Utah who are listening to the show are going to chuckle at this portion, but I don't think we really, listen, I see myself as kind of a rough and tough, rugged fellow myself. I'm kind of like the Marlboro Man in a lot of ways. I don't know if that's how other people would see me outside of Utah. And I don't know if that's how people would see a lot of people who live in Utah as like an Outlaws stuff. So, but I'll be honest, I mean, we're not known for jazz either. We've been the Utah Jazz for 50 years, but we're going to get a better name than Jazz. But anyway, I thought that was a funny point where people are going to be like, yeah, people are going to make fun of you guys if you want to call yourself Outlaws, considering you're not really known as being kind of cut from that cloth. I'm like, whatever, we'll get to it, whatever. But the other interesting argument, and again, I said this, I am kind of coming around on Mammoth a little bit, and I don't feel that bad or that upset that I was submitting my vote for the woolly little creature. Was I've seen some people on Twitter really get excited about this and come up with some really creative, fun stuff. And I think this is what's fun about the age of social media, where people can weigh in and give their takes and sort of like add their ideas to what could be like the experience or the community that's built around the team name. And what really turned me around on it was someone came up with like a fun nickname for what the Mammoth would be. The Woolly Bullies, I thought was really clever, right? I like that. I think the goal horn could be kind of fun. I mean, obviously there would be some sort of elephant trumpeting noise, that would be in the loop on that. If they get a good logo, I think that could be kind of fun. Tusks up. I think we could do something like that in the crowd. We get our tusks up. I'm kind of coming around on Mammoth a little bit now that I think about it. I might have to take this hat and throw it in the incinerator, but I think either way, I feel pretty good about this. I'll be honest. I think whichever way we go, we'll have a name that we can build a community around and a fan base around, and something really fun. But again, I think Outlaws, there's a lot there to it. I mean, we've already like used that Shabuzi song so much here. I mean, Shabuzi rocked the stage in front of the Delta Center, played the bar song. That we could lean into that a little bit more with our Outlaws name, a Wild West branding. So I don't know. I think there's like great argument for both, and I think we should probably maybe consider these to be the two finalists. I do think there is a small chance that we could see the team skate as the Utah Hockey Club. And again, I don't know anything about this. I don't know what the numbers have been. You got to get out and vote is what I'm saying. Get out and vote. But I think that there's a really good argument to be made for both Mammoth, Outlaws, and perhaps even Utah Hockey Club has an interesting argument, right? But we'll just have to see how it plays out. There's one more game to vote on. They said they were going to do the voting during this 4-game home stretch for the Utah Hockey Club. And that's been the action on the concourse, right? With the little voting booths and all that. That's been occupying a lot of attention, even in the news media here in Utah. The action on the ice has been a bit of, I guess, a little bit of a letdown would be probably a way to put it. I think the Utah Hockey Club has been playing very hard over the last 3 games, but they've just been so snake bitten by injuries. It's kind of getting a little absurd. And just to recap, Utah lost the first game of the homestand to Pittsburgh in overtime. Sidney Crosby scored the game-winning goal. So a vintage performance by Sid the Kid. Bummer, but as I said in the last episode, kind of cool that we get to see a goal by Sidney Crosby in his, I believe, probably first appearance. I'm trying to think if he was here in any other capacity before that game. Probably not, but yeah, one of Crosby's first appearances here in Utah. He scores a game-winning goal in overtime. That's pretty cool. That's not nothing, right? That's something. Friday game was kind of an interesting one. They lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets 3-2 in overtime. So they get 1 point in the standings, but they're really going to miss not getting both of these points in these overtime losses, especially if it's going to be kind of neck and neck, sort of a close race to the wild card spot here at the end. Those overtime losses are really going to sting. This is going to be one of them. Utah dominated the first 2 periods, but Columbus came roaring back in the third period to tie the game up at 2-2. And then Zach Werenski, who's probably going to win the Norris Trophy this year, scored in overtime to complete the comeback. So again, Utah dominates the first 40 minutes, loses in the next 20 and overtime. And then the game tonight here on Sunday was kind of the opposite in a little bit. I felt like St. Louis really took the game to Utah in the first 2 periods, and then Utah came back in the last period. And I played a lot better and had chances to tie the game and even win there at the end. But just to recover, Utah gives up a bad goal on a defensive breakdown to give St. Louis an early 1-0 lead. Utah did not convert very well on power plays throughout the night. In fact, I don't think they converted on a single one, and they had several attempts. The officiating in this game was a little interesting, I thought. We saw linesmen missing calls and kind of doing some interesting, making some interesting judgment calls along the way. So I thought the officiating was interesting and in times probably favored Utah in quite a bit, but quite a few of these situations. But again, the hockey club was not able to capitalize. But probably the highlight of the night was Michael Kesselring with a nice rip off of a face-off win by Kevin Stenlund, gets to Nick Bugstad to Kesselring, who rips a slower shot. Actually, this is I was listening to the game on the broadcast, and Kesselring hits a slap shot, and you remember he had one that went 104 miles per hour this year. This one that scored against Jordan Bennington, only 80 miles per hour, but it was right in the perfect spot, right over the on the blocker side, right over the pad, between the blocker and the pad. So perfect placement there by Kesselring. But Jordan Kyrou puts the Blues ahead. Utah gets kind of caught puck watching, a little bit of a defensive miscue. But then at the end, Utah pulls the goalie, Connor Ingram, who had been playing a pretty good game. John Marino has a look with a few seconds to go. His shot hits the post, doesn't go in, and Utah ultimately falls. St. Louis wins. So Utah picks up no points tonight, and that's really a bummer for Utah. We're going to jump over to the standings here on ESPN.com. And if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, you're missing the benefit of the visual, one of which being, me in a cowboy hat, right? A lot of fun. but also the standings here. So I'll just try to articulate this as best I can. So again, we're looking at the standings here. We're really focused on the wild card race. And again, I don't know if you guys are coming into this new or not, if this is your first episode listening to SLC Puck, but I'll just recap this for you. So NHL playoffs, 2 conferences, 2 divisions in each conference, top 3 teams are in, and then 2 wild card spots after that. Utah started the night, Utah is on the outside looking in, and so is St. Louis. But Utah was actually ahead of St. Louis coming into this game with 51 points. St. Louis had just 50. But with the win tonight, St. Louis was able to jump over Utah. So you really should consider these games, these division games, especially these ones right here in this log jam for a wild card spot, kind of a 4-point swing, because that's how much is really on the line in each one's, because it's going to go 2 points more for these guys, 2 points less for the losing team, right? And that's really what this was. St. Louis picks up 2 huge points in this game to jump over Utah. So right now, as it stands, the wild card positioning, and again, there's only 2 spots available. Colorado is in front, has that first spot, 64 points. That's probably going to be next to impossible for Utah to catch. In second, the Calgary Flames with 57 points. So that's the one we got to look out for, is that second wild card spot. Calgary has it right now, 57. Vancouver nipping at their heels with 56. And then behind them, just a little bit, St. Louis with 52. Utah Hockey Club now 3 spots out with 51. But had they won tonight against St. Louis, they would have 53 points, and we'd feel a lot better about their place right now in the wild card race. So it's going to be really interesting. I've talked about this on the show. If things continue to slide for Utah, and they've had a little bit of a struggle here over their last 10. They're 3-5-2. They've lost 5 in a row. So Utah Hockey Club struggling quite a bit. If they continue to slide and find themselves further and further outside of, playoff possibility, it's shrinking by the day, folks. That's the sad news. I think you'll see maybe some interesting things happen for the Utah Hockey Club around the trade deadline, which is in March, right? We've got a few more games before the Four Nations face-off, so I'm just looking at the standings here. So they're going to finish off this homestand on Tuesday against the Philadelphia Flyers, and then they're hitting the road to take on the Columbus Blue Jackets, who they lost to on Friday. So a little rematch there. That'll be a tough matchup, and then 2 really, really tough games on the East Coast on Saturday the 8th against the Carolina Hurricanes, and then on the 9th against the Washington Capitals. So that's going to be pretty tough. And then at that point, they're going to break for the Four Nations face-off right here in the middle of February, and then get back to NHL action on the 22nd, playing the Los Angeles Kings in La La Land. And then, more big games in February. They're playing the Canucks on the 23rd. That's a team they'll have to pass if they want to get into the wild card spot. Chicago on the 25th. I think that one maybe is a little bit easier, but those could be a gotcha game, obviously. And then another really tough one against Minnesota, and expect a good game on Clayton Keller. I've talked about that quite a bit and his mindset against Minnesota this year. But again, like what's really been affecting Utah, and I think this was abundantly clear to anybody who watched the last couple games, someone's been missing. Quite a few folks have been missing, actually, but 2 in particular. Logan Cooley has joined Dylan Guenther on the injured list. He was ruled out after the Pittsburgh game, so he did not play in the Columbus game. And with those 2 guys out, Utah Hockey Club's offense is very tepid, let's say the least. They've gone cold. They're colder than something you like a hot meal that you don't put in the oven to keep warm, that you keep out on your counter and get cold. See, I'm not great at metaphors, folks. We'll get better at that. But they're colder than the ice that they skate on. How's that for a metaphor? But Utah has been so snake bitten by injuries this year. It's been a little absurd. At no point in this season has the Utah Hockey Club put their entire team on the ice. Like even from day one, opening night against Chicago back on October 8th, which seems like a lifetime ago now. You know, I mean, who was missed? John Marino was missing at that time. So, you know, that was kind of one of the bigger stories leading into that one. And then shortly thereafter, you know, they were, you know, snake bitten, besieged by an injury to Sean Dursey, who I think got injured after like the third game of the year. We haven't seen him since then, but I think he's getting close to coming back. But Dylan Guenther's been out for a few games, and Logan Cooley joins him. And I think that really kind of screws up a lot of what Utah does, not only on offense, but let's not forget, like, Logan Cooley typically plays center, and that's a very important piece of the puzzle on the defensive end. You're almost serving as like the third defenseman when you're playing center on defense. And I think, especially tonight, I felt like when we watched the Blues' second goal by Jordan Kyrou, I was like, that's a little bit of a screw up by the defenseman in the center of the ice. And I think Clayton Keller was kind of sucked into that area, was puck watching a cycle in the corner a little bit and missed the pass to Kyrou, who was streaking in and had a pretty easy look at the goal. Like having like your typical centerman in that position. And Logan Cooley plays great defense too. He's one of those 200-foot players. Dylan Guenther also plays really solid defense as well. So he has great stick work. So I think missing those two guys has really hurt Utah. And that's just the thing. No one's going to feel bad for Utah. None of these teams say, oh, these poor guys, you know, oh, they've been injured, but man, it would be so great if, you know, Utah made the playoffs in their first year in a new market. No one says that. It's not going to happen. No one feels bad for you in the National Hockey League. That's what Dom Moore says all the time on broadcast. So Utah has just got to suck it up and deal with it. And this stretch is really important because, again, like if the slide continues, I think Utah kind of has to shift into seller mode at the trade deadline. And trades are crazy, by the way. I don't know if you guys have been following the NBA, but there's been some bonkers stuff happening there. I don't see the Utah Hockey Club, you know, swinging any deals, you know, to get a Luka Doncic, the Luka Doncic of hockey, you know, on their team or anything like that. But I think you might see some interesting things. One of the really interesting things I think you got to kind of watch for is what they're going to do with Karel Vejmelka. He's in a contract year, and I think he'll be a hot commodity around trade deadline. And in the NHL, that deadline is March 7th, I believe. If I'm wrong on that, please forgive me, but I believe it's the 7th. And if Utah's slide continues, they're going to have to really think about what to do with him. Because, you know, I don't know, it could be kind of interesting. And my sister's grimacing because she likes veggie quite a bit, but it's going to be really interesting to see. So a lot in the news this week with Outlaws returning into the swing of things, Utah on a bit of a slide, and injuries considering to besiege the team. Oh, let me just show you guys this quick visualizer really quick. I found this online. And again, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, you're going to miss this, so swing over to YouTube. But this is nhlinjuryviz.blogspot.com. This is some guy who's like super good at like putting together graphs and stuff from raw data. And it's a great visual of how much like the Utah Hockey Club has been snake bitten. And I've said the term snake bitten about 500 times on this episode by injury here. But look at how much time Utah has missed here due to injury. They're trailing just San Jose and Colorado there for the most games lost due to injury. And you can see this red section here. That represents defensemen who have lost games to injury. Utah's red section, dramatically bigger than almost every other team in the National Hockey League. In fact, I would imagine it is the biggest. St. Louis has lost quite a few games on the blue line as well. Very few comparatively on the blue line, or in the blue section, which represents the forwards for Utah. So we've seen Keller miss some games. We've seen a few other guys get bumps and bruises. But mostly, I think this takes into account maybe some Guenther and now Cooley. But with all this Dursey time that's been missed, a little bit of Sergachev, a bunch of Marino, to be honest, and all that. Just this is a really interesting visual to see just how much injuries have affected the Utah Hockey Club. You got to think if they had been more in this territory here, you know, with less so, I think Utah's playoff chances would be a lot better than they are now. But unfortunately, ain't nothing they can do about it. They just got to do their best and right off, gather the posse. Gather what posse you can, meet at sundown, and we'll settle the score, as I like to say, because I'm an outlaw. So thanks you guys for tuning in. Oh, don't forget to go to slcpuck.shop for merch. Hoping to have some more designs here in a bit. We got some new hats, t-shirts for the kids, hoodies, shirts with mythical snow creatures on them, all that good stuff, right? So go ahead and check out slcpuck.shop. Great way to support the podcast. And big thanks to our sponsor, Payne Anthony Creative Jeweler and Jonathan's Jewelry as well. Don't miss out on that promotion. You guys heard the ad earlier, so big thanks to them, and have fun. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.